Waiting for the Barbarians, available online now, new costume drama starring Mark Rylance, Robert Pattinson and Johnny Depp, for whom this is a most welcome comeback after a few years break from acting and that whole personal life drama slash shit show that was going on. In case you didn't know, first he was hit with allegations of abuse by his ex-wife Amber Heard. The media immediately threw Depp to the wolves, mainly because of the Me Too political climate that was particularly alive at the time. He became this sort of persona non grata in Hollywood. But then in court, it turned out that it was actually Heard who was the abusive one. She subjected Depp to basically physical and emotional torture and was a total psycho. Fortunately, Depp had evidence of all that behavior and was able to turn the whole thing around, so he's no longer persona non grata in Hollywood. And fingers crossed, he manages to come back from all of that with his career in a strong way. Which is entirely possible if Waiting for the Barbarians is any indication. Depp and Pattinson are in it, only in small supporting roles though, as the main player is Mark Rylance. He plays the Magistrate, an administrator of a frontier town, of a frontier fort actually, at the edge of the desert. It's an unnamed country, an unnamed fictional empire, although clearly modeled after the British Empire, and unnamed barbarians. At the beginning of the film, Colonel Joel arrives from the capital. He's played by Depp. Immediately we see the contrast between the Magistrate and the Colonel. Magistrate is a calm, peaceful, soft-spoken man. The Colonel is cold, direct and cruel, which is even accentuated by his look with the amazingly menacing sunglasses that he wears most of the time, which make his eyes look black basically. The Colonel comes from an inspection. Foreign inspection. We learned that every year there are fears in the Empire of an imminent attack of the barbarians. The reality is that those barbarians are just nomad tribes that go on their yearly voyages, and year by year they just pass the fort through the desert and they pose no actual threat to the frontier settlements. The Colonel thinks different, and he is determined to find out the truth, as he puts it, by basically torturing the captured members of the nomad tribes and forcing them to disclose plans of the impending invasion. We then see the Magistrate try to de-escalate the situation and retain peace, but the Colonel is stubborn, and in his attempts to find out that truth, or whatever he believes to be the truth, about the imagined war coming to the frontier, he may actually cause one. So the first thing you should know about the film is that it's not a flashy adventure movie. It's more of a slow burning philosophical drama that serves as a commentary on imperialism, hunger for power and hubris of men, especially put in positions of said power. And in this respect, I have to say it's really good. Its criticisms are perfectly valid and made believable by bringing them down from the level of high world politics to the local or even personal level. Especially the contrast between the two main characters makes wonders to get the message across. I also really liked the way the film looks and feels. It was shot on location and it shows, because the atmosphere of the fort and the surrounding desert is practically emanating from the screen. You can almost feel the heat and the dry air that the characters have to endure. Acting-wise, it's great. I particularly enjoyed Depp, who gives a very cold, calculated performance in a role quite unlike him. There's none of the usual quirkiness and madness. He's a very different person in this film. Mark Rylance is also quite solid in the lead role. I think he fits his character even physically and in terms of his voice. Pattinson is great as usual, but he only has a couple of short scenes, so not much to say here. The one criticism that I would have about the film is the middle part, because the film is split into 3 very distinct chapters, and the middle part drags a little bit. The film loses its steam during it. I can see why it was needed for the sake of the story, of the narrative structure as a whole, but I think it could have been shorter or better paced and still got the message across. Having said that, Waiting for the Barbarians was a treat for me. I tend to enjoy those slower, more thoughtful movies, and this is one of them. Great performances, great production design, and it leaves much to think about. What more can you ask for?